everyone. This is Sophia from the Unfair Advantage, and we have a really special guest today from Johns Hopkins University. So, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. My name's Lakshay. I'm a Hopkins sophomore. I study biophysics and math, and yeah, I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, the major goal of this call is for you to break down your high school journey. So, what kind of student were you? What did you do for academics, like any AP classes? What did you do
Yeah.
for extracurriculars? And just break down your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, my freshman year, um, I guess I'll try to go in order with some of the questions and stuff that you're asking. So, what type of student I was? I tried really hard to focus a lot on one kind of like one area of expertise that I knew was that I was going to be pretty good at, or not necessarily that I knew I was going to be good at, but yeah, I tried really hard to kind of like focus in on one area outside of school that I really enjoyed, and I did as many things as I could to kind of pursue that. So my freshman year, I didn't really do that much. My freshman year, I thought I still wanted to be a doctor. um, you know, and like not really get involved in research that much. So I kind of did some like hospital volunteering and stuff like that. I didn't have my school didn't really have that many APs. It was yeah, I guess so. A little background on my high school. It's for kids who are interested in going into medicine. It's like a county magnet school. So when I came into the school, I was pretty sure that I wanted to be a doctor, and so I kind of tried to do the things that people always say are important for like 7-year medical programs. So I'm in for a ninth grader. That is pretty hard to really do anything except for it's pretty hard to do that much except for research. Not research, like volunteering. Trying to get as good grades as you can in school. It was definitely actually a really big adjustment process for me coming from middle school to high school. Because so like in these magnet schools, like it's kind of like a little bit of a selective enrollment type thing. So you have to like test to get in. So in middle school, I thought that, oh, I'm this really smart kid. I don't have to study for any of my tests or stuff like that. Why should I have to study in high school? This stuff is kind of boring. There's no point in me really investing my time when I could just like go off and like read other stuff. That's what I thought. Then my first couple tests, I got like mid 70s and I didn't study, and that kind of stunk. So afterward, I really had to kind of like hit the books a little bit and kind of like rescue my grades. It worked out pretty well in the end. So, I mean, I guess that's a positive thing. But overall, yeah, so that was pretty much most of my freshman year. My sophomore year is kind of where I got the understanding that if I want to go to a really, really good school, I should really be focusing a lot on what it is I want to do and demonstrate as many possible ways as I can that I'm good at what I want to do and that I actually want to do it. I think the winter of my sophomore year, I was at a Model UN conference and my friend introduced me to this competition called the USA Biology Olympiad. Basically, this is it's just a high school biology competition. There are a couple rounds. I think there's 3 rounds. So in the first round, anybody can sign up to take it as long as your school registers you. Um, you go and you take the test, and from that, they pick the top 10% of kids, and they pass you on to the semifinal round. So in the semifinal round, you have to take a longer and harder test. If you are in the top 20 students on the semifinal round, you'll get like accepted to the finals round, which is kind of like they fly you out to San Diego for 2 weeks, or at least my year was San Diego. They fly you out to San Diego for a few weeks, and you go over there and you cram basically half of a college bio major into like 2 weeks or so. Then you have to take some really hard tests, and then if you're in the top 4 of those, you get to represent the United States at the International Biology Olympiad. So my sophomore year was the first year I heard of this competition. And my friend told me about this competition really, and I didn't really have that much time to prepare. So I signed up and I took the open exam, and I got to the semifinal exam by like zero point 0.4 points, some absurdly small margin. And I thought, oh, if however I studied for the open exam, I should study the same for the semifinal exam, and I'll be good. So I did that, and I got absolutely destroyed on the semifinal exam. It was really hard. I really kind of got caught unawares by it, and I didn't do that good in it. So I kind of resolved to do better next year. In the meantime, I uh, I was really fortunate that I live somewhat close to a university. I live pretty close to Rutgers University, and so Rutgers was offering summer classes at the time. Um, yeah, and in these summer classes, you could go, you can get college credit. So I signed up for a biochemistry class to take over the summer, and I continued to do like regular volunteering stuff. Around this time, I kind of realized that I wasn't so sure really about wanting to be just a doctor. Um, which is like I'm not trying to say just a doctor in the sense that like being a doctor alone is boring. Like it's very interesting. It's just something that I don't think I could do full-time medicine. So I started looking a little bit more into doing biomedical research, which I thought at the time and still do think that that stuff is really, really cool. And so I started looking around for research positions and things, but I was unfortunately unable to find one for the sophomore year. And that's, by the way, that's something that I really, really highly recommend if possible. If you are interested in some sort of research kind of like field, and you live close to university, going and doing a summer in a research lab is a really, really excellent way to uh, kind of figure out what you want to do in the future. Uh, and especially like what you want to do in college. And it's also like a pretty good extracurricular to have on your application. So it's definitely something that I really enjoyed. But yeah, so my sophomore year, I started volunteering at the library. I got involved in a trivia night. They have like a bi-monthly trivia night type thing. And at first, in my sophomore year at least, my main contribution to that was just to sign up, write up questions, and like score once I got to the trivia night. Um, yeah. So sophomore summer, I took that class, and I continued to do some hospital volunteering, but that kind of dropped off as sophomore summer went along. Yeah. So this then starts my junior year. So in my junior year, oh yeah, sorry, one thing that I forgot to mention. In my sophomore year, I also joined the soccer team. My school soccer team was like terrible. Like we lost like 11 games a season. But so it was kind of like a walk-on type thing for the JV. So I signed up for JV soccer because I really enjoy soccer. Um, in my junior year, I kept playing soccer, and I learned my lesson from the year before, in a couple of different ways. I started studying for that Biolympiad exam a lot earlier, and a lot harder. I kind of my daily routine at that point was go to school, come home, or go to soccer practice or something, come home, get my homework done, and then just spend 3 or 4 hours reading another chapter in the biology textbook that's kind of like accepted. It's called Campbell's Biology, and that's kind of like accepted as the main source from which people draw their kind of where people who write the test like draw their questions, Campbell's Biology. And so I just made a whole bunch of flashcards. I think at one point I had over like 600, 700 flashcards. Um, and I'd kind of like memorized them all inside and out. Yeah, this took a couple months. So this is not something that you should be expected to do in, I don't know, like a week or two. It's not feasible. I would argue it's not really possible. This is something that took me as whole like 3 months worth of effort to build up all those flashcards. So I passed the open exam for the Biolympiad Open, and then I got to the semifinal exam, and this time for the semifinal exam, I was kind of like a few questions off going to the final exam. I'm still a little, yeah, so I'm a little bit salty about how it happened, but no comment. You know, so that's on the Biolympiad front. On the research front, I uh I also learned my lesson. I started emailing in like January, February, looking for research labs in the summer, and I was fortunate to find one. Um, on the volunteering front, at this point, really my main volunteering was volunteering at the library. I kind of like took more and more responsibility in terms of running that trivia night. Um, and I had a bunch of experiences from that trivia night that actually really helped me in terms of writing my college essays. Because I'll explain some of them a little bit later if people want to ask. But those were actually in general really helpful. And I also started volunteering at my local food pantry. Um, uh, I personally felt like I mean I took Spanish in high school, and a lot of the people who live in my area are who are kind of underprivileged tend to be Hispanic. And so for me, it was a really valuable experience to kind of connect with other people and like help them pass the language barrier, because unfortunately that for a lot of Hispanic immigrants, it's a little difficult for them to communicate with the people who ran the food pantry because all of them spoke English. So I served as kind of like a Spanish English translator, and I helped pick people's bags up and like take them to the car. And I had some really good experiences from that as well that helped me in terms of writing my college essays, because I really did feel like I connected with a lot of people over there, and it mattered a lot to me. Um, and in my junior year, actually, I yeah, so I went to a play with kind of the rest of my high school, and the play was really powerful and important to me. And I kind of like wrote my main Common App essay about it actually because of how the play was in March. This was like 6 or 7 months before applications were due. And I got back home and I'm like, oh, I know for a fact that I'm writing my college app essay about this because it really changed a lot. That's kind of as cliche as that sounds. Um, uh, yeah, and then so I guess that was the majority of my junior year. In my junior year summer, so I got lucky again that the class that I took, the biochemistry class that I took the summer before my sophomore year, I did very well. And so the professor kind of called me back and he said, you can TA for the class. So I TA'd for the biochemistry class. TA means teaching assistant. So I was a teaching assistant for the biochemistry class in my junior summer. So that was a really cool experience, kind of like seeing what it was like from the other side. And also, like I was simultaneously working in the research lab. Since I'd been emailing in like January or so, I got lucky that I, got the position early, and so I was simultaneously working in the research lab. That wasn't really that great of an experience, honestly. Um, the mentor and I kind of had like different philosophies on how much actually mentorship I actually needed. I feel like I felt like I needed a little bit more. So it is actually kind of really important that whatever research lab you pick, that you make sure when you're going there that the professor is really willing to see you, or whoever your mentor is, to see you as somebody who doesn't really have that much experience. And so is really going to need a lot of help in the early stages trying to get experiments and stuff like that to work, just because you've never seen 99% of the stuff that you've seen in the lab before. Like, even though my high school was for kids who wanted to go into medicine and we had a whole bunch of lab equipment and stuff like that, like I just never seen the experiments being done the way that they were done in the lab. And so it is really important that whatever you do, you get really, really good mentorship out of that, or that whoever you're doing it with is willing to really help you and teach you early on. And then my senior year, I kept volunteering at the food pantry. Um, I what else? I kept doing Biolympiad. Uh, I'll focus a little bit on stuff before college apps because I feel like that's more important. Yeah, so I kept volunteering at the food pantry. I took the PSAT in my junior year. That's one thing I forgot to mention, and I did well enough on that that I was selected as a national merit semifinalist. So I was busy writing essays. I reused a lot of the same essays that I used for my college applications. On this National Merit Semifinalist app. What else? I signed up to kind of apply to a bunch of schools, but so like I was saying before, I'm really interested personally in medical research. And one way to do medical research is for you to get both an MD and a PhD. They're called MD PhD programs. They require you to go to school for 9 years after undergrad, so it is a very long time. But at the end of it, you come out having both the knowledge of like a pretty broad knowledge of how the human body works, and how what we currently know about diseases and stuff, and also the research training to kind of understand more about how we can fix those diseases. And to me, that sounded like a really appealing thing because the other thing that was really appealing about it was that the MD PhD, most programs for MD PhD are I mean, so normally medical school costs like, I don't know, like $80,000-$90,000 a year, set somewhere between $70,000 and $90,000 a year. If you are not an in-state student, for public schools. And so, but if you did like an MD PhD program and you were signed up through a couple of programs run by the National Institute of Health, you were actually paid $30,000 a year or $20,000 to $30,000 a year, for the entirety of your training. So for all 9 years. So the MD PhD path kind of seemed like a really attractive way for me to go into medicine, to go into medical research, which is exactly the sort of stuff I wanted to do, and not go into immense amounts of debt to pay for it. So I kind of decided that I wanted to do an MD PhD, and so I started looking for schools that were kind of like well ranked for the type of biochemistry, biophysics stuff that I really wanted to study, and also were really good for producing students who eventually had success in terms of going to MD PhD programs. So number one is Harvard, but number two is Hopkins. And I felt like I had a chance at Hopkins, and I went and visited Hopkins, and I found that I actually really liked it. I liked kind of the environment and all the stuff that they had put on. I liked the students that went there. I felt like I really clicked with some of the people that I talked to, and I felt like Hopkins was definitely the place for me. So I decided to apply early decision to Hopkins. I applied to a whole bunch of other schools as well, but I applied early decision to Hopkins, and once I got in, I kind of withdrew my other schools' applications. So yeah, that was really the main, I guess, like pre-college stuff. I guess for the remainder of my senior year, I did the Biolympiad again, and finally, I broke through. I got lucky that I was selected as a finalist. So I went to San Diego for my senior summer, for 2 weeks, and then I participated in a program that was run by Google to help kids who had little previous exposure to computer science get some exposure to computer science. So that was another 3 or 4 week program. So then I went to Boston for 3 or 4 weeks to do that. And then I came home and I chilled for a week or two before college started. So that was my high school experience.
I would love for you to talk more about how you wrote your essays and if you have any essay tips and how you managed your time during the college application process.
Yeah, so I like one thing that I was mentioning before, right? So I went and I saw that play in March. I wrote my Common App essay, or the first draft of my Common App essay, in March, the day I came back home from that play, because that play had like really like internally affected me a lot, and I was really lucky that that experience has happened to me, that I was able to start so early. But even generally, I think the most important thing to do is to start your essays early. Um, I think people really kind of underestimate how important those essays really can be. Um, and so I wrote the Common App in March, and then I forgot about it for a couple of months. And then June-ish or so came around, June, July or stuff, and I started thinking about, okay, where am I going to apply? So I made my list in June or July. And then kind of from that point onward, I really just tried to do about an essay a day, not a school a day, just an essay a day. Um, there were a lot of days where I just wasn't able to do it because I had a whole bunch of other stuff going on. But I think my essays for like 90 to 95% of my schools were done by like October, I want to say. I know a bunch of people who finished a lot later than that. Like I have a friend who waited until the college until her high school's winter break, which was like a week before essay submissions were due. And this friend of mine had far better like kind of extracurriculars and all that sort of stuff than me. And you know, she's still going to a really great school. She's going to her local state school, the University of Buffalo. They're really good for the sort of hybrid biology computer science stuff she wants to do. But she was kind of telling me that one of her really main regrets was that she hadn't started a little earlier in the process. So yeah, definitely my tip for essay writing is to start as like early.
Yeah, a lot of college students also mention to start their essays early because
Yeah,
they like end up procrastinating at the end and they have to do so much and get stressed.
yeah, yeah. You get really lazy. Like December or so rolls around, and you're like, okay, when is senior? You know, the famous second semester of senior year starting.
Yeah.
You know,
I heard that you started your college list June/July, and we have
yeah,
a question that said, any tips for anyone just starting to put their college list together?
yeah. So I think it's really important for you first to kind of consider what sort of stuff it is that you want to study. And you know, what schools are really good for what it is you want to study that match up with kind of like your grades and your test scores. And a couple of different factors, like for example, if you're like you know, like to some extent I guess your demographic does matter a little bit. If you're uh you know, if your grades are and your test scores are relatively low for kind of like the sort of demographic group that you're in, then you know, maybe you should just think a little bit more about like schools that you have like a pretty realistic chance of getting into. But you know, if your scores and stuff are high for the demographic group that you're in, then you know, aim for the top. um and Otherwise, like once you like figured out what sort of stuff is what once you figured out just sort of, I don't know, like for me it was really important that the school that I went to had a lot of really good research opportunities, had a lot of people who kind of like were interested in research and who were willing to talk about research, because that's the type of person that I am. And so I wanted to be in an environment with other people who kind of thought like me. So that's kind of how I put together my college list. You know, kids who seemed to be interested in similar things to what I did, or at least had where there were clubs on campus where kids could do similar things to what I was interested in at the time. So my list ended up in the end having something like, I think it was like 15, somewhere between 15 and 20 schools. Um, yeah, so that within that 15 to 20 school limit, uh, you know, then I started prioritizing, okay, you know, now I know I really want to major in, or no, sorry, now I know I really like, for example, like I'm on a dance team on campus. So I was like, okay, I really want to get involved in this form of dance because it's like really related to like the ethnic group that I come from in India. And so like it mattered a lot to me that I was able to kind of like keep my culture going forward and stuff. So I was like, okay, now what sort of schools out of here really encourage their students to participate in sorts of groups like these? And so those kind of rose closer to the top of my list.
And we have a question that was sent in that said, what do you think was the strongest part of your application?
Um, Definitely the amount of bio stuff that I got involved in. The vast majority of my accomplishments were in like biology tests. There's actually one test that I forgot to mention. So there's this thing run by University of Toronto called the, I think it's University of Toronto Biolympiad or something, and international students can participate too. National and international students kind of have separate tracks, like Canada versus the rest of the world. So in that, I got 15th in the world for that, something out of like 1,600 people or so. So that was a pretty useful accomplishment. Um, by Olympiad, I was like top 60 in my junior year, out of like 10,000 kids. Um, I was a TA for a biochemistry class. You know, yeah, I was a TA for a biochemistry class. I did biology research. I tried to volunteer in settings that really kind of like matched my values and stuff like that. And I was really able to write pretty good, strong essays that were able to mix my passion with my biology with biology for kind of like the type of career I wanted to have, and that was the type of career that really meshed with my values. And I felt like medical research was the best way for me to sell all of the stuff that I had done in one package. So that's what I did.
So you did a lot of extracurriculars outside of school. So how did you really manage your time with schoolwork plus your volunteering and other extracurriculars?
I think it to some extent it depends. There were definitely some parts of the year that were a lot heavier and harder than others. But there are other parts of the year where kind of like my extracurriculars were sequential, right? Like for example, the trivia night thing that I'm talking about, that happened only once every like 2 months or so. So that really wasn't that time intensive. But like I had achieved a leadership position in it and I really enjoyed it. So I continued to do it. Um, the volunteering at the food pantry, stuff like that, that was like what, 3 or 4 hours a week. It wasn't really that big of a time investment. Um, and it was still something that I personally derived a lot of value from, so I continued to do it. Um, my school is a little bit distinct in that we have like block scheduling, so we had like 4 or 5 classes every day, where each class was 90 minutes. So I really only had half the homework due every day, kind of relative to I guess what a normal high school would have. So I guess I was a little bit lucky in that front that I didn't have as much homework as maybe like a regular high schooler would. But still, I feel like kind of as soon as I came home, it took me about an hour or two to do some of my other homework. And then once that hour or two was up, I really got into doing the sort of stuff that I enjoyed doing, which was, like learning more about biology. So yeah.
And a fun question, what do you love most about JHU?
What do I love most? So I mentioned this a little bit before, but there's just so many research opportunities. It's so great. I can read random people's research all the time. I can go to random people who do like research talks. And the other really cool thing is that a lot of the people here who are interested in research, like the PhD students and the postdocs and the like the professors and stuff, they're all really interested in stuff outside of research too. So it's really easy to talk to people, both about stuff about research and about outside of research. And like at the type of kids that an environment like this attracts is really my type of kids. So I have like my friends over here, I have like a really good group of friends, I think. And I think that that's a direct result of the culture that the professors and everybody try to set at the school, which is to really enjoy doing lots of work in that sphere.
And I will have one last question coming from me. First of all, thank you for your time. This was a really great call. And we
Yeah,
have a community that helps students have a leverage in college admissions, financial
yeah.
success, and career aspirations. And my one last question is, what is one piece of advice you want to give to high school students that you feel like would give them an unfair advantage to know at the time?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned this a little bit before, but I think there's two real ways to get this sort of unfair advantage in college applications. Either you become one of the best in the world at one thing, or you get pretty good at two things. So I think that it's really important to kind of limit the number of topic areas that you focus in on, and not do a whole bunch of random different clubs that don't really have that much kind of importance for what you want to study in the future. If you know you have something you want to do, just go out and spend all your time doing it. Don't waste your time doing things that you don't want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, take as much time as you need, sign up for a whole bunch of different things, but you got to keep signing up for things until something clicks. And once something clicks, just take it and run with it. I think that there are lots of different opportunities for people who want to study things in different fields. And if once you have kind of like found a field or two fields or something, however many fields that you're really, really interested in, look at all the opportunities in the field that possibly can, and just take of as many of them as you can. I feel like that is definitely something that is really helpful.
And with that, you'll have like 30 seconds to promote your social media or plug anything.
Yeah. My social media, so that at luck.sood is that's my Instagram. My Snapchat is at lsood711. Yeah, also the thing that I want to plug, so I would very much appreciate if you guys would read about the plight of the Punjabi farmers in India that's going on right now. I think that's a really important cause that I care a lot about, and so it'd be cool if you guys went and learned a little bit about it.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see everyone in the next video. Bye.